And that's this chapter in the Quran, which is the 50th chapter of the Quran. It's one of those chapters that it's very, if you really study it and read it a lot, and one of the great gifts of reading the Quran continuously, especially these surah that we read on a regular basis, like Yasin or Al-Waqi'ah or Surah Al-Mulk. If you really pay attention, you will continue to see things in them. I mean, one of my favorite stories is from Sheikh Ahmed Dugan, who was a great scholar from Al-Ahsa, Jawatha in Arabia, in the eastern province. And he was a really brilliant scholar, but he was a great faradi. And he taught for about 70 years or even more. He taught the Rahbiya, and he taught the books on Ilm al-Fara'id, Tariqat, which the Prophet said was the first knowledge that would be lost. That was the first outward knowledge. There's another hadith, the first inward knowledge was khushu', which is this kind of awe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But his son told me that one day he came out of his room and he just said, Bab as-Sudus ajaib, Bab as-Sudus ajaib. And he's had some kind of opening about, I mean, Bab as-Sudus is a very interesting bab because there's a lot of situations where people get a sixth in inheritance. But he was seeing something, and we have books written on the inner meanings of all of these acts of worship. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put this between al-Hujurat and the Dhariyat. So the Hujurat is a very interesting chapter because it's really about adab and how, in fact, it's called the Hujurat, which are the places where the Prophet ﷺ lived, which is, the real adab is inside the home, because people often have decorum outside the home, but how they behave inside the home reveals who they really are. And the Prophet ﷺ was a completely open book. We know everything about the Prophet. We know how he showered. We know everything about the Prophet ﷺ. He lived a life without there's no shadow. There's no hidden self. We know exactly how he lived. And so it's followed by Qaf. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the title of the surah is Qaf. One of the titles it's given in the Itqan by Imam Suyuti is Al-Basiqat, which is mentioned in the Quran, and some say that's an ism ijtihadi, that it's something they called it. But generally, the titles of the surah of the Quran are basically from something mentioned in the Quran, so it's obviously very important. But this begins with what are called the muqatta'at. So these muqatta'at are the letters that begin 28 of the chapters of the 114 chapters in the Quran. So there are 28 chapters that begin with the muqatta'at. And traditionally, the way they would teach students to memorize the muqatta'at was they gave them a line. Nassun hakimun qati'un lahu sir. Nassun hakimun qati'un lahu sir. So these are the 28, these are the 14 letters that are mentioned in these muqatta'at. So there are 28 surahs where they're mentioned, and then they have different, so there are 3 surahs that only have one letter, Sad, and then this Qaf, and then Noon. So these are the 3 that only have one letter. If you notice with the muqatta'at, you will find that usually what follows it is something about the Quran, an oath with the Quran. Alif Lam Mim ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابِ لَا رَيْبَ. So you'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is using it, صَاد وَالْقُرْآنِ ذِي ذِكْر. Right? So there's something about the Quran that follows, or al-kitab, hamim, right? Al-kitab, tanzil al-kitab. So one of the reasons for this is that the Quran is composed of these 28 letters, 29 if you add Hamza, but it's very often that it's 28, 29 if you add Hamza. Hamza always needs to have a chair to sit on, so which is not Hamza, it's Hamza, the soft H. But the muqatta'at, if you think about this, the Quran is composed of these 28 letters, and yet these 28 letters, which everybody, all the Arabs they had those 28 letters. And they knew most of the words, if not almost all of the words. There were a few words they did not know that the Prophet ﷺ had to explain to them. And that was the Quraysh, because they were words taken from other places, tribes. But those letters are what the Quran is made up of. They're the building blocks of the meanings that the Quran gives us. And first of all, as far as I know, it's the only book that has this. I don't know of any other book that begins like this. And that in itself is a type of i'jaz, that the fact that they're coming down, and you see it like these are letters, it's as if the meanings, the ma'ani that are in the Quran, it's as if these meanings are coming into existence. They're from the unseen. It's as if they're moving into the qawalib, to the vehicles of language. Because we believe that the kalam Allah, the eternal kalam of Allah, is not the letters and the sounds that we speak. The eternal kalam of Allah, when we say Al-Quran ghayru makhluq, we're talking about these ma'ani, these meanings. And so it's as if the meanings are they're coming from this other realm, the Jabarut, into the mulk. Alif Lam Mim ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابِ. It's as if they're just coming into our presence. And then the other element, which is very interesting, and I haven't seen this mentioned, but it occurred to me that one of the arguments that the Western people make is that phonemes are meaningless. So the building blocks of language are meaningless. I think one of the things that the Quran is saying is no, it's all meaning, that even these letters are meaningful. So it's all meaning. There's no meaninglessness in Allah's creation. It's all meaning. And so it's penetrating those meanings, it's understanding those meanings that is the challenge. And this is why we've been given these intellects. This is why we've been given hearts. They have hearts, but they don't understand with them. We were given intelligence and told to have this tadabbur. And so if you look at this, it begins qaf, and this is one of those in the riwayat that it's extended because it's a med lazim. And then wal Quran al Majid. So here's the oath, wal Quran al Majid, qaf. There's a big difference of opinion, and I don't want to go into all these differences, but when Allah swears an oath, and in the Quran, that all these letters come in the Quran, they usually have a muqsam alayh. So there's what is the oath being sworn about? In this case, it's not clear. And so there's a lot of debate about where that is. And some say it's mahdoof. It's been hidden. So it's really saying that, by this book, and لَنَبْعَثَنَّكَ, you will be resurrected. Or by this book, he is a messenger of Allah. And so the qasam is there, but the muqsam alayh is hidden. And then there are a lot of different opinions. Qad, and they say the lam is hidden. قَدْ عَلِمْنَا مَا تَنْقُصُ الْأَرْضُ مِنْهُمْ. That's the jawab there.